Welcome to the Too Busy to Eat Show. I'm Greg Zuffalato, the host of this show and the founder and CEO of Too Busy to Eat, the protein bar company. So before we get to our very fascinating guest, I want to encourage you to go to my website, toobusytoeat.com, and use this discount code TBTE show and get 20% off of all our products. So my protein bars, I worked very hard to get the healthiest, best tasting protein bars on the market. So check them out. Now, our guest today, we have the privilege of having Monica Reinagel on our show. So fascinating. I don't even know where to start, but she started as an opera singer. And you're like, why is she on the Too Busy to Eat show? Then she went on to become a chef and then onto a certified nutritionist. She has an amazing podcast, Nutrition Diva, and her website, nutritionovereasy.com. She does things like group programs, group coaching programs, consultations, presentations to organizations and companies all over. Fascinating. Monica is a fascinating individual with a very interesting background, and she's written books. She's been on the Dr. Oz show, CBS, ABC Eyewitness News, Today's Show. Just on and on and on. So get ready for a fascinating interview with Monica. Here we go. Well, welcome, Monica. I'm so excited for you to be on our show. I know you're busy. You have a lot of things going on. So thanks for taking the time to be on the Too Busy to Eat show.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Never too busy to be on the Too Busy to Eat show.
Well, you have a fascinating background, not only in the nutrition world and the performance world too. So just give us a little bit background of kind of take us on a quick journey of how you got to where you are today.
I do have a little bit of an unconventional backstory. Nutrition is sort of a second act for me. I originally went to school to study music and spent the first decade of my adult life working as a professional opera singer, which was tons of fun. Yeah. But I was, the typical underemployed artist, not really able to make enough money to have a grown-up lifestyle. Right. And so in my early 30s, I started looking around to see what else was interesting to me. And I have always been very interested in food and nutrition, and started down one of those paths that you couldn't replicate if you tried. I went to culinary school, and then I actually ended up going to graduate school, got a master's degree in human nutrition, and became a licensed nutritionist, and started working in the field that I work in now, which is mostly about in media, in communications about food and nutrition. Yeah. And so it gives me an opportunity to tap into that performance background, but on this new topic that I love.
Yeah, so that it does tie together. It's a different. It's not like a route you might plan out that way, but now you're bringing both worlds together because you do a lot. You've been on a lot of different TV shows, you have a lot of media, and a lot of speaking. I know that's one of your coaching, consulting, and presenting. So it all is tying together.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, very fortunate. Few people have an opportunity to do something they love, much less two different things that they love.
Right. Now, do you still do anything with opera?
Well, that's a very time-consuming profession, so I don't do much opera anymore, but I still do quite a bit of concert singing.
Yes.
I have some concerts coming up next month, so just enough to keep my hand in and to see my friends from that business and that. So
you still get the enjoyment out of it, so more of the fun of that part about being able to do it and not as much as the grind of trying to survive on that.
Exactly. It takes all the stress out of it if I'm not worried about whether I've got enough gigs to pay the mortgage.
Well, let's talk a little bit. Your background's fascinating in the nutrition world with your background in culinary school and then as a nutritionist. But you developed some pretty fascinating philosophies and discovered a lot of interesting things that are and that's what you're doing now as you speak and as you educate people. Tell us a little bit about that, about what you've learned over your time as a nutritionist and as you've grown over the years. What have you learned?
Well, I'm definitely a generalist. I don't specialize in any one narrow aspect of nutrition or in one population or in one disease condition. I'm really kind of interested in all the different ways that we interact with food. And so much of the work that I've done has been driven by the interests of my listeners and readers.
Yes.
I'm virtually 80% of what I do is in response to questions that I'm getting from people who are following me. And I find that's a full-time job, just fielding, trying to sort through the confusion, help people sift through the information that is flooding into their inboxes and their social media feeds to help them zero in on the things that are really worth paying attention to and the things that they can get the biggest bang for the buck. Because I do feel like we can become easily distracted by aspects of nutrition that don't ultimately have that big of an impact and can kind of distract us from things that do. So I'm trying to keep people focused on the big picture. And so I end up doing a lot of myth busting and sort of unpacking trends to see what can be learned from some of the newer dietary philosophies like paleo, let's call the best of all these different approaches. And also realizing that there really is no one approach that's going to be perfect for everyone. We bring so much individuality to this, everything from our own health concerns to just our own cultural traditions and values and lifestyle and food preferences. So the trick is not to figure out which one approach is the one, but how to make whatever you can do work best for you.
Absolutely. That's great. And then you do that through a series. I mean, you have your nutritionovereasy.com, your website, Nutrition Diva, your podcast. And then obviously we talked about the different outlets of speaking and in different media. Is that where do you find that you're able to reach the most people, or where's your most interaction happen?
Well, the podcast is certainly a big part of my effort. It reaches a lot of people. We just they just ran the numbers. We've been in weekly publication now for 8.5 years.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Long time. We're in our 420th episode or something around there, and and that thing's been downloaded over 250 million times.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
You do something for long enough. And,
well, you're doing good stuff too. Yes. So
that definitely is a big part of the outreach. And probably one of the things that I'm best known, one of the ways that most people come across me, podcasts are really enjoying this big resurgence, of popularity again. But the other thing that's sort of near and dear to my heart is a little bit newer. About 1.5 years ago, I started experimenting with doing online coaching programs with small groups to try to put some of this information into action. And that has been, Greg, so satisfying. I enjoy doing that so much.
Right.
And hang on,
that's okay.
I silenced that ringer.
That could be someone on your podcast host.
And that might only be 100 people at a time, a couple hundred people at a time, not tens of thousands, but much more interactive, much more hands-on. And I've learned a lot doing that and had a lot of fun developing those programs.
That is great, and it's a different. I mean, it's. You're going from a large audience from different media sources to that in more of an individual touch. Even though it's in groups, it's that you get to know the person to some degree, and they get to know you. More interaction.
Yeah, and social media and things like a closed Facebook group make that so easy to be in touch with people and to interact, and they get a lot of energy from the group. But in developing those programs, I've come up with an idea that I'm really excited about that I think really has helped a lot of people make positive changes in their nutrition. And it has to do with two things. One, instead of focusing exclusively on what we're trying to give up, what we're trying to eat less of, what we're trying to push out of our diets, I think that a lot of the focus often when people are trying to eat healthier, they get really fixated on, I have to eliminate sugar, I have to stop eating meat, I have to, cut way back on carbs. And, those are things that we may want to pay attention to, may want to look at, but I think that focus entirely on what we're trying to do less of is just defeating, both psychologically and nutritionally. And so the program that I've developed tries to balance that with a big focus on what do we want to eat more of? What are we, what are the positive aspects of this? What are we looking forward to? What are the things that we are adding to our diet that make it more enjoyable and more nutritious? So that's a lot of fun.
That's good.
And the other kind of insight that I think this program, and there's one coming up in just a couple of weeks, actually, if people want to read a little bit more about this, they can check it out on my website. The other key thing is trying to cultivate more of an appreciation for the good enough diet.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like people get done in by these unrealistically rigid ideas about just how perfect their diet has to be. And if they can't hold themselves to that very, very high standard of purity and perfection, anything at all. And I want to grab all of those people and say, no, there is such a thing as good enough nutrition. And we practice it here, and here's some tools to help you make sure that you're not fooling yourself, that it is adding up to a good enough approach. But there's so much more room for flexibility and for eating something every once in a while, not because it's necessarily good for you, but because you love it, or because somebody made it for you. There's room for all of those things in a healthy diet, and I think that perfectionism it really counterproductive in the nutrition conversation today.
Well, you've seen over years of dealing with people in nutrition. It's it can lead to that eating disorders, and it leads to a lot of unhappiness when you're trying to be so perfect with everything. It's never enough.
Right, and that is now being recognized as a kind of form of disordered eating. It's sometimes called orthorexia. That's a way to kind of exercise super control over your diet. And that's not what we're looking for, because in my view, and maybe not everybody would see it this way, food is not only about fueling our bodies and nourishing our bodies. It can play so many other roles in our lives. It can be about community. It can be about aesthetics and artistic expression in the kitchen. It can be about our cultural heritage. It is okay, for it to also be about pleasure. We want to make sure that we're getting the fueling part done and the part right. But I think it's okay to allow some of those other non-nutritional elements into our perspective as well.
Yeah, that's up. Now, who's a perfect client for these programs? I mean, if somebody's out there, who's your typical person that would come to you that you can help the most, I guess?
I guess the folks that do, first of all, we have both men and women. We have people doing it with kids and families and teenagers, and some people that are just doing that by themselves, because it is very flexible, very easy. It's not an eating plan. Basically, here's how it works, Greg. When you do this little 30-day coaching program with me, everybody pledges for 30 days. At the end of every day, you ask 10 yes or no questions about your diet. Okay. It takes about a minute.
Right.
And based on your answers to those 10 or yes or no questions, you get a grade for the day. And, your grade might be B, it might be A, it might be C, it doesn't matter, because tomorrow we get up and do it again. And there's a little app that keeps track for you and tracks your nutrition grade point average, your GPA.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And it's fun, right? And so our goal by the end of the 30 days is just to have a nutrition GPA that's in the B range. It doesn't have to be perfect. And people find that approach is so flexible that they can do it even though they're going on vacation, or even though they have a business trip, or even though somebody comes down with a cold, or it doesn't get derailed by every little thing that doesn't go perfectly, because there's so few rules. At the same time, people say that just having these 10 questions to think about, and it's 5 habits that we want to manage, make sure that we're not overdoing, but it's 5 things that we also want to promote. So it's got that balance of positive and negative. And people find that just those handful of things to focus on really profoundly changes what they're eating every day, how they feel every day. And people report just big improvements that they also find are more sustainable. It's not like you get to day 31. It's like, oh my God, thank God that's over.
Right.
Fast track to the In-N-Out burger, I'm like, hey, that was easy. Let's keep doing it.
Let's keep it going. Yeah. It's realistic.
Let's keep it going.
Yeah. Well, when the journey of my company, Too Busy to Eat, I started as I was doing nutrition consultations. I was helping people with weight loss. I was doing things, but it was what I always got back. Like 90% of the time is too much, too hard, too much to do, and unrealistic expectations a lot of times. And this sounds so perfect because it's something that is sustainable, applied right away, and can last a lifetime. And that's really what your goal is. You want to really help people. You want to have something they can do forever.
Right. I would so much rather have somebody make, a small change that they can keep up forever than make some big dramatic gesture. I got a lot of respect for people who, go 30 days with no added sugar. It's like, good on you, but
right.
Is that a sustainable habit? So yeah.
Right.
And the other thing is that it also includes people can do this if they're vegans, if they're omnivores, if they cook a lot, if they never cook. It kind of fits into any dietary philosophy. So that's also fun. But yeah, you're right. And you mentioned weight loss. I tell people when they are thinking about doing this, it's like, look, this is not about losing weight. We do not focus on weight loss. It's not a goal of the program. We never talk about calories. But at the end, of course, I ask them some data. And the interesting thing is that more than half the people that do the program end up losing anywhere from 4 to 8 pounds, even though we never talk about it. It's not even a goal of the program. But it kind of validates my point of view.
It's great.
Focus on, the positive aspects and good nutrition in a sustainable way. Sometimes, those extra pounds that take care of themselves.
That's right. You're not even and not even hyper focused on it. And you're not getting over obsessed with foods, and you're enjoying it and losing weight at the same time. That's fantastic.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking about it.
No, I love it. I love the different approach. I mean, it just seems, over in my journey of reading every nutrition book and going through different programs, and I've gone in and out of different things. And it's just, it's most of the time it's a crash course and it's a reversion back. And I've seen that with people. I've seen it in my own life. So that's really neat.
Well, Greg, I mean, for you and me, this is our full-time job. This is what we do. So we should be reading the journals and digging through everything and sorting all through that and evaluating all the evidence. But most of the people that I work with, they have other full-time jobs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So we need to boil it down a little bit. Zero in on the stuff that's really worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. Now you've done, you've done a lot of different things, but you've done a lot of writing too. You've done a lot of different books. Your research and inflammation is fascinating. Give us a little bit. The last book you wrote was the Nutrition Diva's Guide to the Grocery Store, and what kind of things do you have you discovered as you've written books and getting them out there to people? Any very rewarding experiences?
Well, here. I have enjoyed writing those books, and it's great to have an opportunity to really pull together a big thought or a big body of work and to have it sort of documented and solid there. But I will tell you quite honestly, Greg, I haven't written a new book in several years. And it's not because I don't have any new ideas. It's because just between you and me and the tens of thousands of people that follow your video cast, I'm starting to feel like there are just so much better ways to communicate than the old school publishing of writing a book. The pipeline is so long. You finish writing it, and then you wait a year before it's on the shelf. And in the meantime, you've moved on to other projects. And so that's what I love about what you and I do, the podcasting, the video casting, blogging, online courses. It gives us so much more opportunity to interact in real time, to close that feedback loop so that, we get an idea out there and there can be an immediate find, and it's a two-way conversation. Very proud of the books that I've written. But when I think about, the things that I want to do next, I find myself thinking more about expanding things like, this sort of content that you and I are creating, online programs, because I find them more for the kind of things that we're talking about, lifestyle and day-to-day habits.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to wonder whether there aren't better ways to share that information in more of a conversation.
What's fascinating is now with the technology and it's just a new way of communicating that is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's immediate. It's the feedback. You write a book and it's off, like you said, it's off a year later. It's published. You do promotional things, but in a podcast or a YouTube video or a blog, you can not only put that information out there, but you can have direct interaction through emails, comments. You get right to people, which is so much more powerful, really.
And when you think about how people consume information now, they're much more likely to be reading blogs or articles or listening to a podcast or watch a 15-minute program or something like that, than they want to sit down and read a 300-page book.
Absolutely.
So it makes sense to kind of take that conversation to where it's actually happening. And
that's neat. That's right. So you do. So we talked a little about your coaching. The programs are awesome. You do a lot of presenting, which is now. What is that mainly? The audience there is that to groups, organizations, companies.
Yeah, I guess about half of it is for other health professionals. Okay. So I do educational programming for other nutrition professionals, for medical doctors who are trying to kind of expand their nutrition background and education, because that's sometimes a little underserved in the medical field. Sure. So a lot of that is presenting at professional meetings and that kind of thing too.
That's great.
Peer-to-peer. And then the other half of it is more directly to the end user, to the eater. And often that's in the form of corporate wellness programming, where companies are thank goodness, this is such a great development, that companies are really starting to see such a great return on the investments that they make in their employees when they educate them and support them and motivate them to take better care of themselves. And that involves a lot of programming, and you bring in people to do that programming. So a lot of that happens in the corporate wellness space, and that's
fantastic. That is a very positive and healthy movement across the country. It's really neat that employers are making a big effort to help, even if it's motivated by finances. It really is truly helping people. Yeah, I know. Yes, who cares? It's get it done. Yeah.
Hey, people are going to do what they're incentivized to do, and that applies to employees as well as employers. So the fact that we can now show them that this is an investment that pays dividends for them, then it's a no-brainer for them. That's the employees win, and it creates. I love the companies that are really working on creating a culture of wellness in their companies that then extends beyond actually just the workplace. It's not just about making sure that there's beverages besides soda in the vending machine in the workplace. But when you can create that culture of wellness, that goes home with people and they take it back to their families. And, it has that halo effect in in the other communities. They're at home and in their families. So I just think that that's a very hopeful development. It's one that I really enjoy participating in. Of course, every company is different. So every corporate wellness program, that the fun of it is figuring out, what that culture is about and where the biggest levers of change are, and pushing on them.
That's fascinating. And you're right. I love the fact that, if there's a company of 1,000 people, the impact is not 1,000 people. It's family and relatives. And it just extends. It's really a great way to change the health of our country. That's one of the I think a key way to get that corporate America and just educate everybody. Yes. Well, now for somebody this is what I always end with a question to boil it down to one piece of advice you can give to that busy person. That person wants to become, health isn't, they're not the healthiest right now, but they want to take that step towards better health. Can you give one piece of advice to that person to make that step forward?
I think I would return to something we were talking about just a few minutes ago. And this isn't a specific piece of advice like, no matter what you do, make sure you eat 5 servings of vegetables every day. Although I think that's a great piece of advice. It's more about head game. And that is not to get too in the weeds about what you're not doing, what you can't do, what you didn't do yesterday. And don't overlook, don't underestimate, the impact of small positive changes. I say often to my folks that I'm coaching, it doesn't, where you are right now is not nearly as important as what direction you're headed in.
That's great.
And I feel like if you're pointing in the right direction and you keep taking steps, even if those steps are small, you will progress, you will improve. And we don't want you lying on the sidelines because you tore your hamstring by trying to run too fast. Take it slow. And, that applies, I think, to nutrition as well as exercise. You don't want to blow it out and then, be injured. And likewise, you don't want to try to embrace a diet that's so extreme or restrictive or rigid that you burn out after 3 or 4 days and just revert. So it really is about the those small steps that can add up that you can stick to, and being on the lookout for which ones they are. And if you're not sure which steps you could take or which ones might be the best one taking, shoot me an email. Give me my 3 choices. I'll tell you which one to do.
That's great. And that's a great lead in. So to get in touch with Monica, you go to nutritionovereasy.com, nutritionovereasy.com. It'll be in the show notes. We have mentioned also her podcast, Nutrition Diva. But that's fantastic. I really appreciate your time. I love what you're doing. I love how many people you're reaching. It's both small group and large group, and you're doing wonderful things. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure talking with you, Greg, and thanks for all that you're doing to kind of spread the word and expand your mission. It's very much appreciated. It's nice to have you on the battle lines with us.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.